Have you ever wondered when you first became you? I mean, when did your consciousness, that inner voice and awareness you're using to listen to me right now, actually switch on? It's one of the biggest mysteries in science and philosophy, and today, we're going to dive deep into what we know. Is it at birth, in the womb, or even later? The answers might surprise you. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is consciousness? Well, that's the million-dollar question. There's no single, universally accepted definition, which makes studying it incredibly tricky. But for our purposes, let's think of it as our subjective awareness of ourselves and the world around us. It's the feeling of being, the experience of seeing the color red, the joy of hearing a favorite song, or the simple awareness of your own thoughts. For a long time, the prevailing thought, influenced by thinkers like René Descartes and psychologist William James, was that babies are born as a blank slate or into a state of blooming, buzzing confusion. The idea was that consciousness gradually emerges as a baby's brain develops and they gather experiences after birth. It seemed logical. After all, newborns can't talk, they can't walk, they mostly just eat, sleep, and cry. Their world seems very primitive compared to ours. But modern science is painting a much more complex and fascinating picture. Thanks to incredible advances in neuroimaging technology like fMRI and EEG, scientists can now peek inside the developing brain in ways that were once science fiction. And what they're finding is challenging everything we thought we knew. Let's travel back in time. Not just a few years, but into the womb. At around 24 weeks of gestation, a fetus's brain has developed the fundamental structures necessary for consciousness. The thalamocortical complex, which is a network connecting the thalamus, a sort of central hub for sensory information, to the cerebral cortex, is in place. This network is crucial for consciousness in adults. When this network is damaged, it can lead to a coma or a vegetative state. The fact that it's functional in a fetus at 24 weeks is a huge clue. So, does this mean a 24-week-old fetus is conscious? Not necessarily. Having the hardware doesn't automatically mean the software is running, but studies have shown that at this stage, fetuses respond to external stimuli. They react to sounds, like their mother's voice, and even to light. One fascinating study showed that fetuses can even distinguish between different voices and languages they hear from outside the womb. This suggests not just a simple reflex, but a level of processing, and maybe even learning. Some researchers propose a sensory-first model. They argue that consciousness doesn't just pop into existence. Instead, it builds up, piece by piece. The first glimmers might be purely sensorated feeling of warmth, the sensation of movement in the amniotic fluid, the muffled sounds of the outside world. It's not a complex, self-aware consciousness like an adult's, but it's a raw, foundational form of experience. It's the very first stirrings of what it feels like to be something. Now, let's fast forward to birth. This is a dramatic and traumatic event. The baby is thrust from a dark, warm, watery world into a bright, loud, cold one. For a long time, it was believed that the stress of birth and the immaturity of the newborn brain meant they could be truly conscious. In fact, until the 1980s, it was common practice to perform surgery on infants without full anesthesia. Based on the belief that they couldn't truly feel pain in the same way adults do, we now know this is tragically wrong. A newborn's brain is incredibly active. EEG scans of newborns show complex brainwave patterns, especially during sleep. They experience a form of REM sleep, the stage where adults have their most vivid dreams. While we can't know if babies are dreaming, this intense brain activity suggests something rich and complex is happening inside their minds. Furthermore, newborns are amazing learners. Within hours of birth, a baby can recognize their mother's face and prefer it over a stranger's. They can imitate facial expressions, like sticking out their tongue. This isn't just a simple reflex. It requires them to see an action, understand it in some way, and then map it onto their own body to replicate it. That's an incredibly sophisticated process for a brain that was supposedly a blank slate. So, if consciousness starts developing in the womb and is clearly present at birth, when does it begin to resemble our adult consciousness? This is where the idea of self-awareness comes in. When does a baby realize that the person they see in the mirror is actually them? This is often tested using the famous mirror test. Researchers subtly place a mark, like a spot of lipstick, on a baby's nose or forehead, and then place them in front of a mirror. Younger babies might be fascinated by the reflection, but they don't connect it to themselves. They might touch the mirror or look behind it for the other baby. But around 18 to 24 months of age, something magical happens. The toddler will see the mark in the mirror and touch their own face. They understand that the reflection is me. This is widely considered a key milestone in the development of self-concept and a more complex form of consciousness. However, a new wave of research is even questioning this timeline. Some scientists argue that a more basic form of self-awareness exists much earlier. This is the sense of one's own body, the difference between me and not me. For example, newborns show distress when they hear a recording of another baby crying, but not as much when they hear a recording of their own cry. This suggests a rudimentary ability to distinguish self-produced sounds from external ones. They know their own cry is different. This leads us to one of the leading modern theories of consciousness, called Integrated Information Theory, ORIIT. Proposed by neuroscientist Julio Torres, it suggests that consciousness is a product of how much integrated information a system can process. In simple terms, a system is conscious if its parts are highly interconnected and work together as a unified whole. It's not about what the brain is made of, but about how its network is structured and how it processes information. From this perspective, consciousness isn't an all-or-nothing switch. It's a gradient. A fetus at 25 weeks might have a small flame of consciousness. A newborn has a brighter flame. A 2-year-old who recognizes themselves in the mirror has an even brighter one. And an adult has a full-blown bonfire. Consciousness grows and becomes more complex as the brain's neural networks develop and become more integrated. This theory also helps explain why consciousness fades when we're in a deep, dreamless sleep or under anesthesia. During these states, the brain's different regions stop communicating with each other effectively. The integration breaks down, and so consciousness dissolves, even though the brain is still active. So, when do we acquire consciousness? The scientific answer seems to be gradually. There isn't a single moment where a light bulb flicks on. Instead, it's a slow dawn. The first glimmers may appear in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy as the brain's foundational networks come online. At birth, this consciousness is amplified by a flood of new sensory experiences, and throughout infancy and childhood, as we learn, form memories, and develop a sense of self, our consciousness deepens and becomes richer, more complex, and more uniquely our own. The journey to understanding consciousness is far from over. It's one of the last great frontiers of science. But every new study, every new piece of data, brings us a little closer to understanding the incredible process that transforms a small cluster of cells into a thinking, feeling, self-aware human being. It's a journey that each and every one of us has taken, even if we can't remember the beginning. What do you think? When do you believe your own consciousness began? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's a fascinating topic to discuss. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this journey into the mind, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. See you next time.